Rose, alchemize a whole bunch of cool stuff. Crap, let's be Santa. Rose, combine hub and laptop. You make the hub top. That one was pretty obvious. Rose, combine bronzed vacuum and umbrella. You make the bronzed vacuum umbrella. Useless, but you're still getting warmed up. Rose, combine salamander and eldritch plush. You make a huggable soft salamander plush. You award it to Viceroy on account of his good behavior. Rose, combine ink bottle and gushers. You make a box of bodacious black liquid sorrow gushers. Another Crocker nightmare rears its ugly head. The ink reverses the healing properties of the blue phlegm. These are pure poison. Rose, combine hubtop and hairband. You make the hubtop band, a convenient hands-free computing device. Rose, combine magnetic W and a bottle of vodka. You make a bottle of magnetic vodka. In addition to having high alcohol content, the liquid inside appears to have magnetic properties. You guess this could be useful? Rose, combine wizard statue and a ball of yarn. You make a ball of silken wizard beard yarn with magical properties. It has magical properties because it is made of a wizard. Maybe you can make something with its magical properties that is more useful than this. Rose, combine wizard statue and knitting needles. You make a pair of needle wands. They crackle with the magic energies. It is time to make something cool to wear. Rose, combine knittings and velvet pillow and squiddle shirt. You make a stylish velvet squiddle knit dress. Rose, combine needle wands and grimoire. You make the thorns of Oglogoth. The needles seem to shiver with the dark desires of the Deep One. Any sane adventurer would cast these instruments of the occult into the furthest ring and forget they ever existed. Rose, aggrieve encroaching malefactors. Welcome to the party, mother frickers. Jade, build. You take advantage of Dave's nap to make some architectural headway on his building. You're really proud of your floor plan. It's so cool. Speaking of naps, you've been asleep for some time yourself. You suppose you better wake up soon. But then, your neighbor on the other tower is supposed to be waking up soon too, and it sure would be a shame if you weren't around to greet him. Dave, wake up and jam. And by jam you mean alchemize, of course. Whoa, your house is huge suddenly. Anyway, let's get this party started. Dave, combine sunglasses and iPhone. You make a pair of eye shades. This one was really obvious, because future Dave had a pair, but he took them with him when he prototyped himself. But now you have a pair too, so that's cool. Dave, combine timetables and computer. You make the turn top. Convenient computing on the go, sort of like you have with your eye shades, with all your important files and apps on there, not to mention spare. Plus, maybe it has some weird time powers? You have no idea. You'll mess with it later. Dave, combine puppet tucks plus smuppet. You upgrade the puppet tucks future Dave made. He probably made it by combining one of your bro's radical marionette suits with your shirt and scaling it up to fit. That's how you would have made it anyway. You add a smuppet to the mix to make a softer, more stylish red plush puppet tux. It's like walking around in snuggly pajamas. Action pajamas. Dave, combine broken Khaled scratch and ruby contraband. You combine a couple more items you got from future Dave's loot stash. The broken form of Khaled scratch and some ruby contraband, whatever the heck that is. The resulting item costs a fortune. You have no idea what it is. Dave, preview item with holopad. You momentarily reconfigure your alchemeter upgrades to make use of the holopad extension. You pop the card into the slot and check it out. The combination would produce the broken scarlet ribitar. Dave, combine whole Calda scratch and ruby contraband. Out of curiosity, you try it again with the whole sword. You dial back Khaled Scratch's little turntable, rewinding the sword to a point in history before it was broken. You then combine it with the red frog thingy to show the complete scarlet ribitar, but there's no way you can afford to make that yet. It costs even more now. Maybe you'll stick to combining items around your house for now, rather than stuff from your future Skilledex. It'll be less confusing that way, and probably less expensive. 1 second, I'll make a clunk noise. Dave, combine crappy sword and Hecka Jeff drawing. Sword. You use one of your bro's really crappy swords from the fridge and a printout of Hecka Jeff to make a sword. This thing is so unspeakably crappy, you're having a hard time even holding on to it. Come on. Dave, combine Snoop Dogg photo and mini AC and Khaled scratch. You make the Snoop Dogg snow cone machine. When foes drop it like it's hot, just turn up the blizzle nozzle so they chillax for rizzle. Dave, combine skateboard and Hecka Jeff drawing. You make Unreal Air. It's free. And there it goes. It is ridiculous what kind of air this thing is getting. Dude, come get the ruler. Check this out. Yeah, it's not coming back. Dave, make another one. You just make another one. You quickly stash it on a card so it can't escape from above. Dave, combine Game Bro magazine and timetables. You turn back the clock and make a vintage Game Bro. You think you remember this one from your bro's stash. It's a classic. Exclusive bro strategies. The hottest secrets. Shh. Challenge your thumbs to the maximum. Outrageous video stunts at your fingertips. Where are all the secrets? In here, bro. Hey, be nice up there. Dave, combine Batarang and Midnight Crew poster. You make a whole pile of suit rangs because they are really cool and pretty cheap. Dave, combine plush puppet tux plus Midnight Crew poster. You make 4 aces suited. You aren't really sure which one you like better. The red one is softer, while the black one is sort of stiff and starchy. Anyone wearing this suit is all business. Maybe you'll switch it up as your mood dictates. Dave, combine plush puppet tux and felt poster. This would make the felt duds if you had some of whatever that green grist is. Dave, combine Smuppet and felt poster. You make a jutting out and impudent felt plush. You do an acrobatic freaking pirouette off the handle and into his heart, and he into yours. Dave, combine dead things in amber and Smuppet. You make a foam mutant Smuppet encased in amber. Now we're getting somewhere. Dave, combine dead things in amber and Smuppet. For the sake of science, you double line combine them instead of or combine them instead of and combine. You make an amber mutant Smuppet abomination. So cool. Now this is how you make crap work. Egbert and Lalonde should be taking notes. Dave, combine fetus in a jar and Mr. T puppet. make the foam fetal Mr. T in a jar. Another backbreaking victory for science. You're looking pretty chill with your new freak show entourage. The underlings all look kind of put off by it, though. You're kind of weirding them out. Dave, combine camera and capture log card. You make the Capturoid camera. You use it to snap a ghost image, you can use it, of any object without capture logging it. Spits out a brand new capture log card every time. Could be a useful way to take a large inventory of anything you encounter without cluttering up your Skillodex. Also for grabbing codes for stuff you can't ordinarily pick up. Dave, take photo of self. You take one of your patented, ironic, cool guy self-portraits. Man, so cool. That's really all there is to say on the matter. Dave, combine fetus in a jar and self-portrait photo. That would apparently make Dave's brain in a jar. Gross. It costs a king's ransom, though, but because of course the organ is virtually inimitable. Doesn't stop you from capturoiding its hologram, though. Dave, capturoid the hologram of your own brain. Okay, that's probably the weirdest thing you've ever done, but okay. Dave, complete brain and Sweet Bro and Hecka Jeff drawing and combine and Capturoid camera. Oh. You make the Super Jiffier. Finally, something useful. It costs you -10 or -1000 units of artifact grist. Dave, try it out. Snap. Wow. Sweet Bro, Hecka Jeff. Bro, where'd you go? I was going to shell at you my chops. Aha, dude, are those wings? Time to fly up away to the sun, you freaking piece of garbage. Garbage. Okay. The only thing that's left to really do is watch that butt hole fall. Looks like it automatically prints out a Sweet Bro and Hecka Jeff comic in some way related to whatever you take a picture of. This should save you a lot of time. Specifically the 5 minutes it takes you to draw a comic. You're a busy guy. Dave, make copies of Rose's journals. Can't forget the most important thing you came up here to make. Gotta be getting your snoop on. Dave, take a look. Meow. One book is titled Meow. The other is titled Complacency of the Learned. Gee, you wonder what could be in Meow. Dave, read it. It says meow 100 million times. Except it kind of starts deteriorating. Meow, 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 meow. To no surprise at all, this book is full of more meow letters. Looks like Rose is totally nuts. What else is new? You guess you'll try out the other book. Looks like it's some sort of creative writing project. Dave, read Complacency of the Learned. Oh boy. Friglish bothered his beard as if unkinking a hitch in a long silk windsock. A more pedestrian audience would parse the exhibit as nervous compulsion, behavior to petition contempt among the reasonable. He was, however, not surrounded by the reasonable, but the wise, a distinction in men that would forever be the difference in history's garland of treasured follies. As a matter of fact, his cadre, of fellow wizards were all putting similar moves on their beards as well. The practice would evince thoughtfulness, sagacity, even. They didn't do it, if they didn't do it all the time. Standing in line at the bank, shooting squirrels from bird feeders. Few occasions were safe. Zazarpan inspected the clue, a single piece of evidence cradled in his courageous old man palms. It was a human bone, not striking into the tail. It told alone so much as that told by the thousands like it festooning the marshy soil of the mass grave. The grisly expanse bore the texture of a decadent dessert, like one of Smyrnie's formidable custard trifles, wobbled out on wheels for the holidays, to the dismay of a small nation. "You're certain of this?" asked Fricklish. Despite what he was doing with his beard, he was, in fact, immersed in meaningful contemplation. "I'm afraid I am being more so with each terrible tick groused by that gaudy timepiece slung around your neck." In case it wasn't clear, Fricklish wore a clock Zazarpan didn't care for. It was magic. The massacre of Sirs Gnlef was not as written. "What has you convinced it was the hand of our disciples in this blackness?" Executus chimed in. "I believe a fat face stammered, eyes darting with the guilt of a thief in the throes of an unraveling alibi. "I can summon a more pressing line of inquiry." "No, Smarny. Nobody was in the mood for a sticky buntloaf just now." Zazarpan's ears fell insubstantial to any line of inquiry, pastry-oriented or otherwise. His abstruse contour carved a pondering shape in the fog carpeting centuries dead. His 11 contemporaries, too, embraced the muted conversation of their great predicant scholar. Few wizards kept sharper adumbratives, or read them with such lucidity, while Zazarpan treated men with silence, when it was seldom unrepaid by the wise and reasonable alike. It was harrowing to entertain. Zazarpan, the learned, storied complacency of wizards, was marked for grander descendants. Is that all that says? I can read. Disciples handpicked, vetted by Arcdite the bona fide, and tested by Gastrel the munificent. The 12 sweetest, most studious children a pair of elderly eyes could give their sparkle, not the ragged gutter snipe or so oft harvested by the common obscenity. Those vituperative little beggars with hearts to corrupt as dropped bananas brown, that those chosen youngsters would turn was not merely unthinkable, but something of a roundhouse to the temporal bones of the upper indifference's high chamber of soft-skulled prophets. His wisdom-savaged brow pruned further with recount of his many lessons to would-be successors, lessons to advance humanity's elucidation and prosperity, an outcome this bleak trail now painfully obviated. There were few puzzles the learned could not suspend and dissect in that recondite manifold beneath his extremely expensive pointy hat. Daring to pitch his cherished pupils in with the foul melange, I don't really know how to say that one, of history's rogues, the heretofore abstract scourge that built up civilizations with ungodly magic and tore them down with joyous malice, would prove an intellectual trespass to make his calcium-deficient bones quake. And more daring yet was the only question that now mattered. Could a bunch of bearded, scraggly old men in preposterous outfits hunt them down? He didn't have an answer. Only a simple observation was so blunt and uncharacteristically jejune for the lauded sage. It was breathtaking in its self-evidency. We're gonna need more wands. Wow, think of something better. The wizard story seems really involved and kind of confusing. You'll have to save your place and dig into it later, and then maybe ask Rose what the heck the deal with it is. Dave, go get a bookmark. You return to your room in search of a bookmark. Oh hey, finally a use for that pointless juice-stained beta that will never serve any purpose, past or future. You drop it on the john in case you're looking for some reading material later. Dave, check on Rose. Dave, pester. Dave says, well, why are you burning your wizard fanfiction? And she says, I'm not. This book contains a genetic code. And he says, oh, okay. Then why are you burning that? And she says, the gods from the furthest ring asked me to. And he says, is that some dumb wizard thing you just made up? Or something to do with tentacle monsters? I can't keep track of what you like anymore. And she said, how do you know I wrote a story about wizards anyway? And Dave says, John told me. He was all snooping around your room while you were asleep, and I was like, no man, don't. So not cool. But then he was like, haha dude, check it out. This book is full of wizard slash. And I was like, I don't even want to know. This is such a crazy violation of privacy. And Rose says, this story sounds suspicious. Dave says, do you want me to chew him out about it? I will, because that was so outrageous. I don't know where he got off being like that. Rose says, no, I don't actually mind. Too bad I missed him. Dave says, I thought you hated wizards. What's the deal with that? Rose says, I like wizards. What I don't like is my mother's obsession with feigning interest in them to antagonize me. Dave says, man, that's so messed up that you think that. She probably digs wizards for real, just like you, and you're blowing crap out of proportion, like pretty much always. You and she could probably have been chatting up how awesome wizards were this whole time, but no. You're probably burning your nutjob meow book to spite her too, aren't you? Rose says, no, I told you. It's one of the gene sequences locked in my subconscious. The gods say it's critical to destroy it. Dave says, oh yeah, I thought that was a joke. When did they say that? And she says, when I was asleep. He says, you mean when we were dancing and stuff in our dreams? And she says, yes. When I flew to your tower, I heard them. They're far above, in the dark sky. He says, I've never seen or heard these things in my dreams. She says, aren't you often distracted by music and puppets? He says, yeah. She says, have you ever looked into the sky without your shades? Dave says, no, what a ridiculous question. She says, maybe you should try it sometime. And he says, ... And she says, you're the prince of the moon. And he says, ... She says, I'm sure they've been meaning to seek a royal audience. And he says, ... And she says, what do all these dots mean? ... He says, dunno. Anyway, yeah, I guess I'll do that. Get some sky monsters to boss me around. Sounds cool. Dave Sprite, also pester. He's talking to Rose as well, and says, so really, why are you burning that? Rose says, I just explained this to other Dave. Do I have to explain everything to you twice now? He says, no, I know. I'm using Dave's spare computer. I saw the whole conversation through his Pester Chum account. And she says, oh, I see. So instead of having to double explain, I merely have to put up with being double spied on. What a relief. He says, I just mean you didn't burn that book in the future. That book was completely pointless. She says, I know, but now it's not. You appeared to make it relevant by traveling to the past. He says, so does that mean the sleeping thing worked? You remember the future? And she says, I remember some things. He says, okay, cool. So why is the cat code so terrible now? She says, I don't know. The gods were pretty emphatic about it. He says, well, okay, I guess it's done, but why are you so sure they're right? She says, have you ever known them to be wrong? And he says, I guess not, but they sort of freak me out. I mean, listening to gross space mutants all day isn't my idea of an awesome time. Especially the ones that sing, oh gosh. She says, is that why you always kept the music turned up? He says, no, I flip out to Ill James because they kicked butt, obviously. She says, I guess we'll chalk another riddle up in the solved column. And he says, yeah, case the frick closed. And current Dave says, are you talking to future me? And Rose says, yes. And he says, okay, I'm out of the loop again. Between you taking orders from dream beasts and birdwing me with, future secrets, I'm doing some sort of spectacular freaking jackknife off the loop, and I'm getting a wink and a nod from Barack Obama. I'm coming upstairs. And she says, okay. Dave, chill with Dave Sprite. Dave says, so it was pretty funny how I made a copy of Rose's evil book right before she burned it and how she doesn't know about it. And Sprite says, I know, it's crazy what kind of foresight this guy has. I'm telling you, coincidences like that are unreal and they don't even happen most of the time. And Dave says, the best thing about how I did that is how it in no way will ever come back to bite us in the butt ever. And Sprite says, dude, our crap is safe. And Dave says, so safe. And Sprite says, gonna sleep pretty sound tonight with that big freaking payload of safety you just got dropped on us. Gonna be all hugging my pillow and crap, grinning like a gosh dang bear full of honey. Dave says, safer than some Flintstone vitamins in a bottle. Keep twisting, Junior, all you get is clicks. And Sprite says, butthole thinks it's candy. Doesn't even know he just stepped on a security rake and got a face full of freaking safety. Dave says, yeah. Anyway, I guess I'll go back down and burn that book. And the Sprite says, alright. Dave, go back in time and stop the thief. Looks like you already tried that. Whoever took those boots was a pretty cold-blooded dude. You figure you'll cool it on the time travel for a while. Don't want to see the Dave corpses start to pile up, especially if one of them winds up being you. Dave, throw yourself out the window. You ditch the body before Jade sees it. That would probably freak her out. John, press a button on the control panel. You push one of the nearby buttons. It activates the upper right monitor. The view is locked to a particular location on Earth at a particular date and time. Whoever was in the lab appears to have recently calibrated this device. John, examine monitor. The monitor displays a town on the west coast of the United States. It appears to be your old neighborhood, but there is a factory there that you do not recognize. The date is December 1st, 1995, a few months before you were born. John, zoom in. An old woman is escorted by her son on a lovely day. A target has been locked over the gentleman's mother. A meteor overhead looms unnoticed. Crocker. They witness the destruction of the facility, collateral damage to a corporation owned by a renowned billionaire explorer. A mystery begins. John, press blue button. You create a paradox ghost imprint of the woman you recognize to be your grandmother. The ghost sludge is sucked into a glass tube. John, switch 4. You switch to a monitor displaying a view of a remote island in the Pacific on December 3rd, 1995. John, zoom in. A renowned billionaire explorer approaches on his yacht. An old factory lost 2 days prior, but a new shipmate gained. Together they settle on the island and plunder its secrets. A meteor overhead streaks unnoticed, headed towards an unseasonably warm city in the central United States. John, press blue button. You create a paradox ghost imprint of the man you spotted in the woods with your book. The ghost sludge is collected. John, switch 3. You switch to a view of an unseasonably warm city in the central United States on December 4th, 1995. John, zoom in. An outrageously awesome dude stands before a crater where his favorite record shop stood 1 day prior. He is prepared for the occasion with a smaller pair of outrageously awesome shades. A meteor overhead races unnoticed, headed to a lake near a laboratory on the east coast of the United States. No aquatic life would survive. John, press blue button. You create a paradox ghost imprint of the outrageously awesome dude. The sludge is allocated in one of another pair of tubes. John, switch 2. You switch again to the view of your neighborhood on April 13th, 1996. It is the day of your birth. There is more real estate you do not recognize near the recently devastated baked good facility. It is a shopping mall you've never seen before. John, zoom in. Prankster's Gambit. A professional lady and new mother has traveled from the opposite coast at the behest of a famous and wealthy scientist to study one of numerous recent celestial anomalies while he is on expedition. She notices a meteor overhead, on collision course with a quaint family joke shop. A distinguished gentleman notices the lady and comes outside to greet her, oblivious to the threat above. The gentleman's mother remains inside, busying herself with a tall bookshelf, a ladder, and a rather hefty unabridged joke book. An old mother lost today, but a new son gained. Sassacre. Sniff. The gentleman discovers a clue. A powerful nose detects perfume. The lady has fled. The mystery deepens. But the monitor has not lost track of the lady. John, press blue button. You create the paradox ghost imprint of the professional lady. The sludge fills the final tube. Once all the tubes are filled, an automated sequence begins to execute. 4 young paradox clones are created. John, there's one more button to push. Ectobiology sure does involve a lot of button pushing. At least it does when you're a junior ectobiologist. Your loyal assistant, Dr. Meowgon, is all over this one. One pair of tubes empties the sludge into the chamber below. The other pair does as well. Another sequence is activated. John, scale etch ladder. You storm up your etch ladder to claim the coveted, if difficult to pronounce, ectobiologo babysitter. Your ladder is absolutely hemorrhaging the boondollars. Just what your pork hollow's fat butt needs. He's been a stout runt, a Mr. Snoozy Prince McSleepy Pants, calloused tenderfoot, overbite upstart, breeches ripper, scamper master. It's you. You are the star. Jungle Gym swashbuckler, unreal air, gritty midget, rascal sprat, rung jumpin' ragamuffin, and scurrywart, and shark bait spark plug. You surpass 1 million boon dollars and trade them all in for a single whopping boon buck. This is, of course, going directly into the college fund for these youngsters. Sure is heavy. Into the hollow it goes. Navigating the vale nearby, an old man has much to do before he returns to Earth, dies, gets stuffed by his adopted yet biological daughter slash granddaughter, and stuck in front of a fireplace. Taking priority at the moment is shipping 2 passengers long overdue for a reunion. Gray, Troll John. He says, see, case in point. And John says, what point? And Gray says, the point I was just making. About the ultimate riddle? You blithering, feculent crap hole? Okay, that's your cue to laugh at me some more, I guess, because you seem to really get off whenever I flame you. Humans are deranged. John says, oh man, I must be getting closer to the conversations where you're trolling me harder. This is pretty exciting. I can't wait to see what you've got up your sleeve. And Gray says, you see what I mean? Frick you about that. John says, anyways, you weren't making a point about the ultimate riddle, dude. And he says, yes I was, and now I'm losing my train of thought, dipstick. And John says, nope, we never talked about it. Yet. Gray says, oh heck, that's right. Dang it, I guess this is gonna be confusing. John says, oh, you're just starting to figure that out now? And Gray says, I see I kind of painted myself into a corner. I started trolling you at the end, just before the rift, and then I jumped back a little, and now I guess I've become railroaded into working backwards here. Unless I want to do the other sort of dumb jackbutt hopping around like the others. John says, oh my gosh, I know. You've already told me like 1,000,000 times. Gray says, I have? Wow, I can't wait for all these amazing conversations to take place. It's gonna be like that human vacation with the giant red chimney butthole up in here. You know, the one with a bunch of moany nook suckers sing at a little pine tree, I think. John says, man, I've got to say, I'm a little disappointed by this masterful trolling you were bragging about. And Gray says, I was bragging? Why would I bother with that sort of pedantic human horse crap? Maybe you should consider that I was bragging to get your hopes up in the future, only to let you down, and thus troll you masterfully in that respect. John says, maybe, but that would be pretty weak too. Gray says, your brittle human calcium-based skills is what is weak, and if you and I were in the proximity of a blunt instrument, I wouldn't have much trouble proving it. And John says, whatever. So what was the case in point you were making anyway? And Gray says, I was scrolling back and noticed you were in the Vale. And John says, whoa, am I? And Gray says, yeah, dum-dum. You're tumbling around on a big gosh dang meteor. And you just created younger versions of yourselves and your guardians. Probably by mucking around with that thing like a doofus. John says, wait, these are all baby versions of us? And Gray says, ha 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 ha, so clueless. What did you think you were doing there anyway? And John says, well, I saw footage of my Nana and some other people who I'm pretty sure were like Jade's grandpa and Rose's mom and stuff from a long time ago. And then there were all these little guys scurrying around. So are they like cloned copies of us? And Gray says, no, they are literally you and your guardians. Paradox clones. And John says, huh? What do you mean they're literally us? Do they go back in time? And Gray says, yeah, obviously. Great guess, brain hero. But technically, they aren't even sent back in time because, with respect to the medium, your universe's timeline is meaningless. Seriously, why would it give a crap about Earth's past or future or whatever? From its perspective, it's just a bunch of points to choose from. Just like your chronology is from our perspective. But I guess that's a bunch of semantics. With respect to your personal chronology, that just sounds so wrong. Yeah, they go back in time. A paradox clone is by definition a correctly cloned duplicate that will inevitably go back in time and become the original target that was cloned. If it's a malformed clone, it's just a meaningless mutant that has no bearing on the stable loop continuum. I don't see any tentacles or extra eyeballs or warped bone bulges, so those gross little things there are all you guys, waiting to go to Earth and grow up and become the insipid bunch of grub-fisted douchebags you all are now. And this was the point I was trying to make about the ultimate riddle. John says, what is the riddle anyway? Maybe I can guess. I'm good at riddles. Gray says, ha 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 ha. Think again, ignoramus. It's not even that great, or much of a riddle at all. In the course of your adventure, you would have encountered all these fragments of like weird poems and crap. You find them along your quests with clues and stuff buried in them to help you solve puzzles and move huge stone columns and make staircases appear and lots of nonsense like that. And it's all masked in this flowery sort of frothy, poetic jack buttery that nobody really cares about. And I sure as heck don't care about spoiling it for you. But what all these lofty, symbolic allusions boil down to is some grander statement about what you see happening here. That you were always the key to seeding your own existence through the game. And any hope that it could have played out differently, or that you could have avoided this whole mess, was always just a ruse. John says, a distraction, perhaps? And Gray says, what? And he says, never mind. Gray says, because if it didn't go down this way, then how were you even born? Get it? Which is especially pathetic, since Paradox Space apparently went to all this trouble to make you just to have you fail and die. Really, there's nothing more tragic than these null sessions full of kids entering the game and fulfilling some cosmic destiny crap just to get wiped out and leave behind an empty, pointless infosphere for all of eternity. Actually, it's sort of hilarious. Or it would be if it didn't affect me personally. But anyway, there's a lot more to the riddle than just that, like what we were just talking about last time we talked. But that's sort of the gist of the themes it deals with. John says, okay, well, if I run into some salamanders who tell me all about this riddle and get really excited about it, I will try to act surprised. So this is the same kind of thing you went through with, like, being your own paradox clones and creating your own parents and stuff? And Gray says, yeah. And John says, how did that even work with 12 of you? And Gray says, it was really freaking complicated, and I'm not going to get into it. Our family structures are already way more complicated than yours without even getting spooky time slime involved. Basically, you have nothing in common whatsoever, except maybe this. I was the guy in your position to make all those clones, and frankly, it kind of freaked me the heck out. John says, huh. Yeah, I guess now that you mention it, I'm finding it all a little strange. And Gray says, oh, just now? Frick, you're fast. I hope you got the mad boombox to pay off those speeding tickets. John says, no, I mean the ghost stuff and the paradoxes are one thing, of course. It's something else. It's just, this is really weird. And Gray says, what's so weird about it? John says, well, normally humans hatch from, like, these slimy pods. Then we wriggle out as little pink larvae. And Gray says, oh, really? Huh. Maybe we have more in common than I thought. And John says, hee 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 hee. Gray says, maybe those really are mutant clones and they aren't going back to seed your planet? And John says, sure? And Gray says, heck, I'm confused now. Not that I give a crap about you and your pointless, awful lives. John says, hey, I have an idea. Why don't you get back to me in a few minutes? I mean, like a few minutes of my time, not yours. All these little pink monkeys are getting way out of line and I have to tend to them. If you message me in a couple minutes, we can continue conversing in the same linear fashion for a change. And Gray says, okay. And John says, then after that, you can keep going backwards, and then make fun of me riding my little red rocket. You can tell me I look like a silly little paradox clone fresh out of my slime tube, and this is just all big Nursey time recess jamboree. That would burn me pretty good. Grace says, okay, that is pretty good, but I can't use it because you said it. Then later, i.e. right now, you would get the satisfaction of knowing you were the one to come up with that burn. See, you are dealing with a pro. You can't out-troll me, so just forget about it and stop trying. And John says, hee 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 hee. John, tend to little pink monkeys. They're scrambling all over the place. They appear to be preoccupied with some of the objects littered around the lab. At least it's keeping them busy. John, get trolled by Gray again. Gray says, okay, it's a few minutes later. Look how sane and linear we are being. John says, yeah. And Gray says, okay, awesome, now frick you and goodbye. And John says, wait. And Gray says, what? John says, I was just looking at all these rascals and I was wondering, how do they go back in time and become us and stuff? Does it have something to do with the reckoning? And Gray says, how do you know about that? John says, you told me. We had this great dare going to see who could be the least helpful and informative. And you totally lost, dude. You were hecka helpful. Gray says, hi, baby. I was obviously just spitting your stupid, pointless human dare. Spiting. What's a dare anyway? It's nothing. Someone says something and then, oh, laugh, laugh, you lose if you don't do it. That isn't anything that deserves a word. We don't even have a word for dare in our language. The closest approximation would be worthless freaking bullcrap waste of time for silly little children. John says, oh wow, is that the title of a movie too? And Grace says, yes, it's the title of every dumb movie you ever liked. And John says, haha, that isn't even true, it doesn't make sense. Grace says, anyway, how could we have made a dare if I'm moving backwards on your timeline? You would dare me to do something, then I would do it next time, but you wouldn't even remember the dare because we didn't make it yet. That's what isn't true. That's what isn't true. It doesn't make sense, you a damp bag of crap. And John says, well, yeah, the dare never happened. I was joking around and made that up to give you a hard time. And Grace says, you have sounding stupid down to a science. Where's your lab coat and test tubes, Dr. Brain Professor? And John says, I'm wearing a lab coat. Sort of. And Grace says, you look like an elf. John says, that's bullcrap. And Grace says, you look like you should be blowing into a funny little shell and limbering up for a silly cookie dance. And John says, do you even have elves? And Grace says, yes. Let's compare which fantasy creatures that don't exist we both do or do not have. What a great freaking idea, John. And John says, what? And Grace says, you asked about the reckoning, so why don't we talk about that instead of all these pretty much terrible things? John says, okay. And Grace says, yeah, so when the reckoning starts happening, all these Paradox clones get shipped off to meteorites, flung through sky and defense portals, and then sent back to Earth. End of story, I guess. Bye. John says, wait, so that means we're all sort of like Superman? And Grace says, yeah, I guess. And John says, cool. And Grace says, you all trace the mythological footsteps of your beloved human Superman, who's really just a muscular Caucasian alien. It's hilarious how humans worship him as a pinnacle of human heroism and virtue, but he isn't even human. Actually, it's incredibly pathetic, but also, in a way, kind of admirable, because it means deep down you almost realize who your daddy is. We are benches. And John says, yeah, Superman is pretty cool, I guess. Did you know Nicolas Cage was almost going to play Superman one time? And Grace says, oh, my throbbing phlegm lobe, who gives a freaking frick about that? John Egbert, you have assassinated my patience. Adios, loser. And John says, wait! Get back to me in a couple of minutes, okay? And Grace says, fine. Facepalm times 2 combo. Regulator shred. You're ripping up so many hellacious shreds, and this fierce, crappy biz nasty is getting so deliriously Rude brazen? It... Okay, you lost the handle on that sentence. Oh my gosh, is that what you think it is? This thing is so completely illegal. How could this atrocity be floating out here unnoticed all this time? You are going to throw whoever is responsible into the slammer. You always call jail the slammer when you are extra angry at crimes. Regulator, go in. There's a large elevator platform ahead. Regulator, go down. Below, there is a dark, cavernous room. Near the platform is a time capsule. It has deployed a seed and waits for something to be deposited and for the clock to be set. It is all harmless enough. Still no signs of any perpetrators. Regulator, search premises. Deeper into the darkness of the room, there is some complicated lab equipment. Again, nothing particularly unusual for this jurisdiction. Regulator, examine equipment. There is a large monitor. Displayed on it is a small human girl in a fancy house. The date is April 21st, 1910. 8 days prior, the orphan girl was taken in by an aristocratic Southern colonel and legendary humorist. He received the young lady from a crater recovered, where a bakery once stood, operated by the man's wife, a notable baked goods baroness. There is an explosion in the colonel's backyard. Land sakes alive, we're cooking with petrol now. The colonel and his new granddaughter investigate. The impact site is where a doghouse stood moments ago. It was the magnificent abode of the man's beloved pet, Hallie. He takes a belt from the old julep flask. He'd sooner perish himself than lose that dear animal. Bang! People would think reports of the man's death were greatly exaggerated, but they weren't. This is exactly why babies should not be allowed to dual-wield flintlock pistols. An old colonel lost, but a new brother gained. Aha! There's Hallie. The youngsters adore their new guardian. Good dog. Best friend. The young boy has difficulty pronouncing the name, though. Sounds more like Harley when he says it. Regulator, fast forward. 13 years later, the boy develops a taste for adventure. He and his guardian bid farewell. His sister is sad. She will be left all alone with the wicked pastry baroness. She can handle it, he tells her. He believes in her. This all seems pointless to you, and immaterial to the crime that has been committed, though you do find it odd that the purifier target has been fixed over that especially stupid-looking animal. You hear the elevator platform. Someone is coming. It's a high-ranking agent from your kingdom. Could he be the man behind this crime? Could his intent be mutinous? You know the agent to be far too dangerous to take into custody. You hide behind some equipment and observe. He appears to be holding some notebooks. Also what appears to be a pair of juice-stained envelopes. Discard. Only one of the books is useful to him. The envelopes are useless. And he couldn't make it through more than a paragraph of the other book. Some weird thing about wizards. He discards them. The spare notebook lands on the floor. The envelopes land in the seed. The time capsule stores the seed, and on account of some default setting, is programmed to bloom several 100 million years from now. 413 to be specific. The capsule then readies a new seed. The agent approaches another device near the large monitor. John, get trolled by Gray in a sane and linear manner. Gray says, okay, I got back to you. Are you happy? John says, sure, I guess. And Gray says, you don't even know it yet. We are about to start passing out bunnies like they're cheap cigars. It's going to be an embarrassing display. John says, what are you talking about? And Gray says, yeah, exactly, numbskull. Let's just have our chat, then it can naturally occur to you to be an idiot in the due course of time. John says, okay. I was sort of mulling it over while looking at all these babies with guns and sitting on ponies and things, and how the reckoning takes them back, and how you said our reckoning starts sooner. And Grace says, yeah. John says, are you sure it has to start so soon? Can't we delay it? And Grace says, ha 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 ha. It starts in a few minutes, stupid. See that countdown clock over there? You aren't delaying anything. John says, oh, dang. I guess I better get off this meteor then. And Grace says, well, I mean, it doesn't happen all at once. First some smaller meteors go, then the bigger ones, spread out over like 24 hours or so. It's supposed to be like go time when it starts. Like it's time to hurry up and stop fricking around and kill the boss. Get it? The rock you're on doesn't blast off right away. Too bad, because it would have spared you from making a fool of yourself in a couple minutes, and more importantly, spared me from having to watch. John says, okay, well, you keep saying how doomed we are and how all this bad stuff happens sooner, but you never say why. What happens so in our game that's different from yours that makes things go so badly? Graydon says, Jack Noir. John says, who is Jack Noir? Gray says, an agent of Durst, who flipped out and rose to power. He killed your Black Queen and King, and now he's in charge. John says, so you didn't have him in your game? And Gray says, no, we did, but he was harmless. Actually, he was an ally, sort of. He settled a grudge against the Queen by helping us dethrone and exile her. And then he wound up exiled himself and sort of kept helping us through a command terminal on our old planet. He's kind of a huge butthole, though. But because he took the Queen out of the picture, we got to Skya. When we got to Skya, we only had one monarch to deal with instead of two. Of course, it was a nasty, giant, times 12 prototyped Black King that took forever to kill, just barely in time before the biggest meteors came, but still. John says, I see. So after he got exiled and all that, he came here into our game and caused all this trouble? And Gray says, no, gosh. Egbert, you are thicker than that hideous joke book you waddle around with. Try to think more abstractly. Think about video games. What's an Earth game you like to play? Name one. And John says, Crash Bandicoot? And Gray says, okay, I don't know what that is, but I have a feeling it's a really lame example, but that's fine, it's not the point. So let's say you play your Bandicoot, and I play my Bandicoot. They're essentially the same Bandicoot, same appearance and design and behaviors, but they are still completely separate Bandicoots on separate screens. So we both have our own blood Bandicoots to ourselves, the same but different. Our Jacks are the same but different too. Same guy, different circumstances and outcomes. Our Jack trumped the Queen, but got no further. Your Jack got the best of both of them and is now something higher than a king or queen. And John says, like an ace? And Gray says, sure, okay. John says, okay, I think I get it. But how did he do that? What was different about what we did versus what you did? Gray says, frankly, I have no idea what the original thing that tipped the scale was. It is under investigation. But it doesn't really matter. The worst is yet to come. For you. John says, oh no, what is the worst thing? And Gray says, I already told you. And John says, dang it. So, hey, sorry, hang on, this little lady is bugging me about something. And he says, yeah, you might as well get it over with and give her the lousy rabbit already. And John says, oh man, I just had the best idea, this is so perfect. A blonde mother and daughter together, this is totally perfect. And Gray says, perfect for what? Flexing your formidable frick-butt brain like a freaking heavyweight for the next several minutes? Oh wait, let me check. The answer is yes. John says, it is like that scene in Con Air. I'll give her the bunny, like I'm Nick Cage, fresh out of the slammer. And Gray says, frick. John says, I just wish I had a filthy wife beater on. Oh well. And Gray says, just, ugh. Sound, John, reunite with your loving wife and daughter. Gotta get the DMCA again. Punk. Hard rock smash. This is stupid. Yeah, right. Take us there, Casey. Here comes the guitar solo. The mullet is really bad. Just making sure. End of Act 4.